meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed.
And how you doing? How you living? How you feeling, folks? Back for another episode of City Night Lights. Now, of course, I'm your host. My name is Zach, and as always, I'm glad to be back talking to you guys. Now, this episode, we're just going to get into some spring training predictions, more or less. Kind of talk about some of the storylines, what we expect to see out of this spring training camp, and, kind of where we think it might end up in terms of overall what this roster is going to look like coming into the season, what some of these storylines mean for the Mets coming into the upcoming 2026 MLB season. Now, as I turn up my microphone volume just a little bit. Now, with that all being said, we're just going to get right into it. And I have a couple storylines I wanted to get to. I think the first storyline is going to be, I wanted to talk about right field. I think that's an important thing to talk about. Now, obviously, we've heard Carson Bench, 2024 Mets first-round draft pick, is currently getting the opportunity to get that starting right field role. I'm very excited about that. I think that's really cool that we're actually seeing some camp competition, something that doesn't seem to happen as much in baseball these days, but really cool that the rookie is going to get a shot to, have his rookie year in 2026. But I do think there's reason to say that might not happen. I mean, obviously, he's not a very seasoned guy, still very young, really only had maybe 20-ish games in AAA, so isn't super seasoned in the minors either. So, you do run that kind of risk with a guy like this. Obviously, he's so young, you could send him down, and that's kind of not a worry. But, just something to keep in mind with Carson Bench. You really don't know exactly what you're going to get. Now, I would love to see him open up for the Mets on opening day, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So, the Mets necessarily aren't sure if that's going to happen either. I mean, they went out and picked up a couple guys because I think the goal is if Carson Bench doesn't make the opening day roster, I don't think they want to trot Tyrone Taylor out there in right field. I think he's kind of the bench outfielder. So they went out and they picked up a Mike Tauchman and a MJ Melendez. Now, Mike Tauchman, he's been a journeyman in the league for a long time. Had a long stint with the Yankees. I believe he also played for the Giants for a little bit. He's been around the league. And honestly, I don't hate having a 35-year-old, solid vet, a guy who can hit slightly above league average, at least he has over the last 3 years. I just think that helps having a more than just a nothing bat in that spot, probably in the 8-hole of the lineup. Now, the other guy, MJ Melendez, he's a very young guy coming out of, what's it called? Yeah, what's it called is super helpful. He's coming out of Kansas City, and we picked him up on a 1 year. Now, I don't think both these guys are going to make the team out of spring training. I think one of them will get cut. Now, I think MJ Melendez is way more likely to be cut just because he had such a horrific last year. Granted, he only played 23 games, so he didn't get to, much of a start to anything. But, 2 years ago in 2024, didn't have a great season again either. I mean, we know he has some pop potential, but he's played enough games and he's had enough sample where he still hasn't broken out past the 100 OPS plus, the standard for your average MLB hitter. Still hasn't been able to break that in his career. He's young. He's very, very young, and this is a guy I would love to see maybe get a little bit more time of development maybe in the Mets minor league system. Now, I don't know what his contract situation is like outside of that 1 year. I don't know what options he does have for the minors and majors, but I'm going to assume for sake of argument he has no minor league options. So I really do think it's going to be between Mike Tauchman and MJ Melendez, and in all honesty, I think Mike Tauchman is going to be the one who, makes this Mets roster. So, that's kind of all I had to talk about right field. One of the other things is that I thought the Mets had a shot at going out and picking up Starling Marte, but I do believe he signed today, actually, March 2nd. I think he signed to the Royals. Let me get a quick check on that, because I know he went somewhere. Oh, yeah, he did go to the Royals. Okay, cool. Oh, that was 2 days ago. Well, good to know I'm right. Well, we'll keep it moving and grooving. I thought, Marte could have been a guy who returned to the Mets, but obviously going on to a different place, Kansas City, small market, fun team. So good for him. I think the next thing we need to talk about with this team is that, the field. I think in terms of our field, it's going to be weird. We're going to have Jorge Polanco playing first base. You're going to see Brett Baty maybe playing some first, playing some right field. Even he'll probably get reps at second and third, too. He's going to be kind of that McNeil role. Bo Bichette playing third base has never played there in his career. It's going to be very interesting. I don't really know how this is going to all shape out. Now, I guarantee you during spring training, you're going to hear about every single low light between Jorge Polanco playing first and Bo Bichette playing third. I guarantee you'll get all the low lights in the world from those two. I've seen a little bit out of Bo Bichette. He's had a blunder, had a great play. Not enough of a sample size to really make a general decision on how good his defense is at third. But definitely going to be something to look out for and see how that kind of plays out. Now, I don't think we're going to see him play shortstop if Francisco Lindor starts the season on the IL with that hamate bone injury. It's the hand injury. So I think if anything, we may see maybe a Ronnie Mauricio play there. I really don't even know who else would play that shortstop position if he's not there day one. Who is? Yeah, I guess it would have to be Mauricio because I don't know who else you play at short. If you're not going to play Bo Bichette there, I think you end up playing. I think you have to play Mauricio. It looks like he's the only one even on the roster. All right, well, that's interesting. I don't know. It's just obviously we're going to hear a lot of blunders. Polanco playing a new position, Bichette playing a new position. It's weird. I will say, though, I'm very much appreciative that the Daniel Murphy, Jeff McNeil role is now still alive. It's going to hit its third iteration with the Brett Baty addition to this. You're going to see him play, like I said before, see him play third. We'll see him play second. We'll see him play right field. Hell, he might even play some first base. I mean, this is going to be someone for us who's going to be a very versatile asset. The Mets want him playing every day. And honestly, I think this is the best way for him to get playing time. Because, you bring in Bo Bichette, which is a weird thing and kind of blocks him out of that everyday third base role. And then you also bring in Marcus Semien, who Brett Baty's secondary position at the time was second base. You saw him play a lot of that last year. So now Marcus Semien, that's his one position. He's going to lock down second base, play pretty good defense there. Now that leaves Baty in a weird position where the only way he can really get reps every day is if he's somehow playing in right field and maybe Carson Bench doesn't make it and he's the everyday guy in right. But it's a very weird situation right now. I don't know how it's going to play out. I do think that Brett Baty's going to be the everyday swing guy, though. We're going to see him kind of in and out of the lineup. Very excited to see how Brett Baty plays this season. Just big Brett Baty fan. I hope he's awesome. And I also hope he's our future third baseman. But that's for seasons down the line. Now, I'll keep it moving. I do have two more things I want to talk about. We're going to start moving to that the pitching side of the ball. And I think it's important to keep Mets fans on their toes about this. We're going to have a six-man rotation this year. I'd be shocked if we didn't. The way the Mets have kind of accrued arms this season and the type of arms they've accrued just seems to put them in a place where they have to rely on a six-man rotation. I mean, David Peterson kind of flustered out after he hit the 140-inning mark last year. I mean, he was decent before that and completely blew up after in September. Nolan McLean looked great, but he didn't come on to the end of the year, and he's a very young guy. You don't know exactly what that's going to look like. Now, I hope he's going to be great. Team USA guy, very, very excited for that. So we'll see how Nolan McLean does. Freddie Peralta, great addition to the team. Had his best season last year, but what happens if he doesn't have his best season? I think it's important to make sure we have more arms to protect him. Kodai Senga's been another guy, plagued with the inability for 2 years to really not be able to be your third or fifth pitcher every 5 days. He just wasn't able to do it. Whenever he got that extra day, he was phenomenal. So I think this helps Kodai Senga get back and get ready. I think this helps Sean Manaea, who's coming off an injury and really looked bad last year. I think this helps David Peterson, helps Clay Holmes, kind of maintain that pretty good season out of him last year. And then it also gives opportunities to guys like Christian Scott, Jonah Tung, even some Tobias Myers getting in there. I think we have a lot of options in terms of what we can do with the starting pitching role. So I just expect to see kind of all of these guys thrown out there and in the mix. I really do. I think it's going to be a big point of emphasis for the Mets this year is to get a lot of pitchers in that starting rotation, a lot of different people going, a lot a lot of eyes on a lot of things. You don't know exactly what Jonah Tong looks like. He's been working on a third pitch all off season, so maybe we'll get a little debut of that third pitch in the MLB. Christian Scott, who had some early MLB success his rookie year and went out with Tommy John. We'll see if he's able to get back from Tommy John and what that looks like. Tobias Myers, the guy we brought over as the second piece in the Freddie Peralta deal, he's someone who's also going to be very exciting moving forward. So the Mets have a lot of arms and they got a lot of firepower, but they're not exactly sure what of that firepower is the strongest and what every bullet's going to look like. So I'm very intrigued to see how this Mets pitching staff kind of shakes out throughout the year, because it's going to be an interesting one, that's for sure. Now, I do have one more topic to talk about, and that's going to be the worrisome bullpen for me. I'm very nervous about this bullpen and the way it's kind of constructed right now. I'm not very comfortable with Devin Williams being our closer after just kind of having seemingly a miserable year with the Yankees last year. Someone who has had a lot of success in his career, so I could see him bouncing back and becoming successful again. That wouldn't shock me. Sorry, every time I just tried to look up the same thing twice, and it threw me right into an ad as I was punching it into Pro Baseball Reference. That shit is so annoying. But yeah, Devin Williams didn't have a great year last year. Had a 4.79 ERA. It's the only time in his career outside of his rookie year where he's been above a 2 ERA. So I would look to maybe see him get back to a little bit of normalcy, a little bit more towards the mean. So let's see Devin Williams bounce back before I really make a decision on how good he is and how worth it he is in that contract. Luke Weaver was a nice addition, but someone who also blew up for the Yankees late in the season. And, I think we'll get a good showing out of him, but he just makes me nervous. We just keep picking up Yankee bullpen pitchers, and it's weird. It's just weird. Brooks Raley, the 37, almost 38-year-old lefty. It's going to be him and Brian Hudson coming out of the pen as our only lefties right now, just because we're still waiting on A.J. Minter to get back. Had lat surgery last year. Should be coming back. Right now he's going to be delayed, probably not back in April. We'll probably see him in June. But I actually kind of like where our lefties are at. I like A.J. Minter. I'm very excited about him. I know he's coming off this lat surgery, but has had a lot of success in the past and is an accomplished lefty, someone who's been able to do it before and do it effectively. So I'm excited to see him. Brooks Raley has been effective year over year. Someone who's not a hard thrower, but truthfully a very, very effective pitcher. So I'm excited to see him back in the lineup. The Mets also picked up Luis Garcia, 39-year-old right-handed flamethrower. I have no idea how that's going to shake out, but we'll see. That's all I can say about that. We'll see. This bullpen is so weird. Brazuban, I hate Brazuban. I don't want him in the bullpen. He makes me nervous. The fact that he's still running on, option deals. Like, he's still an ARB, I think, which is crazy. I don't know how. I think he has one more year of arbitration. He's a 36 going on 37-year-old. Like, that's crazy to me. And then, the two other arms that we probably won't see this year are Danilo Nunez, a guy who's had a lot of success for us, but just been very injured going into Tommy John surgery. And same thing with Reed Garrett. Two guys who've had a lot of success for us out of the bullpen. But we just haven't been able to see a lot of them due to injuries recently, and that's just going to be unfortunate. We probably won't see a ton of them in 2026, but, obviously keep your ear to the radio, see what comes out, see what people are talking about. You never know what might change. Now, that's all like the really early storylines I had. I don't think we'll see anything out of Ryan Clifford in terms of making the MLB roster this year. He feels still a little young, a little underbaked, not quite there yet. He's only 22. Our replacement shortstop on opening day might be Vidal Brujan. I'm kind of praying to God it's not him. Yeah, that's all I have to say on that. Another guy, Nick Morabito. I think he's playing for the Italian team. He's a 22-year-old outfielder. Dude is fast as lightning. So that would be cool just to see him maybe get some play later in the year. We might also see 2023 draft pick A.J. Ewing come up during the year. He's very, very young. I think he's going to start the year in AAA. And plays a little center, plays some second base and some right field. I would expect to potentially maybe, get some rumblings about him throughout the season. Very young, talented player. Let's see, is there anybody else that's even worth talking about? Just as I casually scroll through here. No, I think that's it. I not a ton of guys outside of what we've already talked about. Nothing super crazy going on. It's going to be a very interesting season. Obviously, keep your ear to the podcast news, what might be coming out, what we're going to be talking about, to see what the Mets are going to do this season. We'll be talking a lot about it. I'm going to try and do a once weekly, Mets recap. We'll see how that goes, and yeah, we'll go from there. Now, with that being said, I do really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to listen to me talk about the Mets. Who doesn't like talking about the Mets? Fun team. But with that being said, guys, I really do appreciate you coming out, listening, spending the time. And just remember, stay idiotic, my friends.